So I'm Scott Jones, and I want to thank everybody for coming in here. We got Rex Sikes, Scott Schilling, Teodora, and Barry, and I love seeing you guys every week. Let me tell you.
Thank you for being here.
You know what? I would not want to spend my Valentine's with anybody other than you guys, unless there was a woman out there that said yes, but that's not happening. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Well, I'm your secret Valentine.
I know, but I didn't have to buy anybody chocolate this year. I'm so happy. No chocolate, no flowers, no cards.
No.
Awesome
you're lucky I was happy with just a text this morning.
I know. I texted people.
Valentine's Day is a sham anyway, and I'm saying it as a love
is.
coach.
It's a commercial thing,
The relationship guy says Valentine's Day is a sham. I love that.
Because it was based on a saint that died trying to get the Roman soldiers married off, and the emperor, the Caesar, basically had him garroted because he fell in love with his daughter. That was one thing. So he's already a negative story. Secondly, Cadbury in the 18th century decided he wanted to sell more chocolates, so he put them in heart shapes, which helps promote Valentine's Day. And then Hallmark has been putting out these horrible movies for the last 30 years.
and Barry wants you to believe it's not just a one-day wonder, or else his book would not last all year round.
Valentine's Day should be 365 days. In fact, it shouldn't be Valentine's Day. It should be Love Day every day.
There should be Love Days for 364 days, and one day you get to hate everyone.
Yeah, there you go. A life on your own terms, then.
Which leads us to the purge.
Which, by the way, then you have Scott that says, that sucks. What now?
Okay. And then I feel much better now.
All right, welcome to the Lonely Hearts podcast here.
The only one married here is Hipster, Hipster. Thank his wife for letting you be here today. Because Debbie's not here because she's busy with her hubby. So,
you can tell what's important to her.
Seriously?
Yeah, her husband's buying a nice dinner.
Let's change the show to priorities to people. Come on.
As we all prioritize.
Oh, good God.
All right, Scott. Go ahead, Joe.
Before we start the show, if you'll allow me this one indulgence just for a moment, just for my friends and the people out there listening who knew Charles Tuff, we all knew him as Denny, who has helped hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people get sober. We lost him last week, just old age got him. But he had well over 50 years clean and sober and spent every day of that helping human beings and trying to spread the word and brought a lot of peace and joy and love to a lot of people in this world. So Godspeed, Denny, and thanks for everything, brother. But thank you for that, guys. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today was we talk a lot about, improvement and doing different things. And it's really easy to try to get stuck into one little thing. Like I'm so hyper focused on trying to make my work better or trying to make this better or trying to do this or trying to improve myself in this area. Sometimes we let things fall by the wayside. So one of the things I want to talk about is how important it is to keep a balance, even when you're focused on things, to keep a balance in your life and how that helps keep us centered and everything else. And I know for me that although my existence is really dedicated to helping people with addictions and achieve sobriety and to find themselves, but I also have to have a balance of taking time away from that to enjoy myself, and a balance of spending time with people and not always being the answer guy, but sometimes just being the friend and hanging out and going bowling and doing stupid things and being silly and not always being the cool guy or whatever. It's important that I have that balance, because without that, I can get really lost. Even if I'm doing a good thing, too much of that I can get lost in. And then what happens is everything gets out of whack. So I just want to talk about finding balance and how important it is to keep balance in your life. If that works for you guys, that's fine. And if it doesn't, you could talk about why you're all sitting there alone on Valentine's Day. So,
because we had a commitment to this show.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
If you would have released us, we'd be elsewhere.
I'm sorry. Contractually, you all must be here. Who wants to kick it off?
Don't all go at once, so I'm going to pick. Here we go.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you.
He's always shocked when we choose him.
Yeah, he is.
We can go through all the people. Everybody smokes 4 times, and we go to him. He's like, "What? Me now?"
So, speak to balance for a second. I think I definitely agree with you about the fact that it's important to change things up. Even when I'm doing stuff, I mean, when running a book or other things I'm doing, if I don't shift the energy, it just tends to peter out. It's like I know for myself to maintain a level of excellence in what I do as a finite amount of time. It might be a whole day, but usually it's a couple hours on, couple hours off, making space, because I know when I come back fresh. I mean, especially with my book, I had to come back fresh to see it differently, to go, oh, now I can tweak that bit, change that bit, because once you're in the weeds, so to speak, it becomes less functional. So taking breaks, resetting, and changing energetics. So even when you're sitting at a computer, every, I don't know, half an hour, I'll get up and walk around a bit, just shift the energy to get my body moving again. Because the thing is also, being a society that generally sits a lot at desks, our energy gets depleted very quickly because we're not doing things. So you need to get up and shift your energy, change your balance, or change your arrangement, so you can actually be more prepared to work.
Absolutely. I actually have one of those standing desks in my office, so that after I'm sitting for 40 minutes or so, I could bring it to a standing, and I'll spend half of my day is standing, half of it is sitting, and I'll just keep switching it up. Little things like that.
Good idea.
Scott.
Yeah, I got one of those standing desks in another building. So,
well, excuse me.
But he has one.
Kidding. It was a joke. Bad attempt at a joke. But anyway, I actually wrote about this in That Sucks What Now, that the way to be truly balanced in life is to be purposefully imbalanced. And what I mean by that is, wherever you are, be there fully. Be where your feet are. If you are working, work full out, and then come back to center. And if you're going to go for some recreation or physical activity, go full out and then come back to center. All the studies show that multitasking doesn't work in the small things. Well, multitasking doesn't work in the big things either, where you are in your life. So if you're in your spiritual pursuit, be 100% in your spiritual pursuit while you're there. Whatever it is, we tend to try to, we're a 3 in our job, we're a 6 in our physical stuff, we're a 12 and in social, we bounce back and forth, and we don't really do any of the areas of our life a real service. So wherever you are, be there fully, be present, be where your feet are, and take advantage of it. And that's, again, I think a lot of people, Barry said it, right? I can be writing full out for 2 hours, and then, okay, I've got to get up and I've got to go move around, and then I become fresh. Well, all of a sudden you did some physical activity. So you were 100% in that physical activity. I think it's really the idea of whatever you're focused on, be truly focused on, and do it as well as you can, for as long as you can, or for whatever period of time you want to. Then come back, recenter, and go on. And I think you'll be better served overall.
Absolutely. And I like the way you say that. It's about 100%, because if you're carrying your work home with you and it's still running through your head, now your kids are not getting your 100%, or your wife or your husband or whatever. And now it starts to drop off there. Now the stress from that is not going to allow me, when I go back to work, to be 100% there either, because now I'm stressed because things aren't good at home. So it is about being present in your moment. And I love that. Thank you, Scott. That was very well said.
Thank you.
Barry want to say something?
Sorry, what?
No, I said, did Barry want to say something?
Again?
Yeah, no. Okay, never mind.
I can, because that's only one I had on Scott, but I'll come back to it later on.
Okay.
All right.
I got the stage.
You got the stage.
Well, here are my thoughts. gosh, when I didn't even know what I'm getting myself into here. And honestly, truthfully, I'm gonna be blunt here and tell you that I'm the most unbalanced person that you can find. In this moment, nothing about my life is balanced. And I think, and I'm okay with that. And I'm gonna tell you why. I'm okay with not putting effort into too much recreation. I'm not saying I'm not taking recreation at all, but I'm not putting effort into recreation because my goal is to grow my business. Let's imagine I just I just opened a restaurant. Where would you find me all the time? In that restaurant, right? If I just started a business, my effort and everything I am is into that restaurant, and that's where I am right now. I'm spending time with Alma, but she's supportive and understanding, and she's just such an amazing child to be like, you go work. I got everything else. I'm not in a relationship because I don't want to focus my energy into that. I want to focus my energy into my business so that I can grow it, so that I can become financially independent for generations to come. So am I balanced? I'm totally unbalanced, but my goal, my vision is to my growth, my business, my life is put into this so that later on I can come back to being balanced and have the financial freedom, the freedom of time, the everything I need, and just go back and balance back again. So my view of this balance of life has a lot to do with my goals, and I think it aligns with the goals that we have. If my goal would be to get married tomorrow or this year, I wouldn't build a business. I would date everybody in the world that I can find a husband. But my goal right now is to grow the business, and so I'm unbalanced in other aspects of life so that my goal can be reached, and then I'm balanced back, if that makes sense.
But can I just say that as far as perspective, technically, if that's what's working for you, you seem to have an idea of what it is. So you're making a balance of your ideas.
Yes.
So I don't, and that's my perspective as far as how I see it for you, but you're balancing what you think are your priorities right now. So I would look at that as a positive as opposed to the negative saying you're in balance. Food for thought.
Yeah, I agree. Lynn. I think we're not talking about a balance of equal time. No. We're talking about a balance of not just having one thing, that we have other things. Where I'm working, and I'm with you because I'm trying to build this business, and it's been my focus for the last 3.5 years, and it's going to be probably for the next 5 years. So this is what I do. And that's why I'm not in a relationship. But I have to remember to have other things that I can decompress with and do things.
Right.
I don't spend half my time playing and half my time working. I spend 90% of my time working, but that 10% of my time that I play, I put myself all into it just so I can get that break. That's the balance is not about time. But I totally get you.
Yes.
It's good to have that kind of focus too.
But what I'm saying is I don't want you to feel defeated when I heard you. That's what I thought you were. Yeah, you felt like you weren't on, that's my opinion. But what I want you to know is you're doing the right thing. So you're balanced in my eyes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, let me try and bring some balance to this conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, let's please.
Over the place. Let me bet. No, actually, some very wonderful and beautiful things have been said by each and every one of you, and I appreciate that. I really do. I would offer a couple of things. One is I don't think you can be balanced or out of balance. I mean, I think that's a human concept. That we're trying to find some way of making everything work in a certain way. And what Scott said originally, if you're totally present in your moment, and then you're totally present in the next moment, and then you're totally present in the next moment, you don't need balance. You're doing what you're doing. And so if Teodora is 90% of her day is passionately involved with her business, but when she's eating, not passionately involved in her business. When she's sleeping and not passionately involved with her business. When she's having some leisure time, she's not passionately involved with her business. Then she already has this stuff that we're looking for. It's when we're in one thing with our head in another thing, or our heart, it's kind of like looking this way, but our feet are facing a different direction. And so nature doesn't know balance, and yet it does. Think of it this way. Sometimes it gets really hot for a week or two or for a month or something like that. But at nighttime, it tends to cool down some. It may be 120 degrees in the daytime and only 100 at nighttime, but there's a change. Nature knows to change. Waves come in and waves go out. There's a season for everything. So if you're completely present, you're completely present. And again, ancient mystics have talked about this forever. Wash the dish, just wash the dish and be present. Eat your food, just eat the food and be present. Make love and be present. It doesn't matter. We add, there's what's called positive stress and negative stress. That's, again, it's a human concept. Like there's stress, and stress is bad. And then people come along and say, well, not all stress is bad. If you're passionately, working on your business, Scott, or Lynn, or any one of you, or Teodora, and you're consumed by it and you love it and you enjoy it, that's not necessarily stressful. It's or negative stress. It's negative stress if there's worry and fear and desperation and anxiety and negativity, and you're piling all that on. And that comes from not being present. That comes from worrying about the future or regretting the past or being anywhere but here and now. So there's what's called choiceless awareness. And a lot of people don't quite understand that. How can something be choiceless? But it's to be aware without making a choice. Now, also the comment about multitasking. Women multitask naturally. They have to. They're on the phone, they're ironing, they're holding their child, they're doing all these things. There's somebody's doing something. You're doing it, because it's or a stay-at-home dad or something. There's the concept of multitasking in that regard. Not necessarily desirable. It just means that people can do a lot more than they think they can sometimes, even if they're distracted. Now, it can be the cause of stress and all sorts of things because you're trying to do all this stuff. When I teach people to be better at observing nonverbal so that they can, like DE agents need to know, or Border Patrol agents need to know somebody's coming across the border. If they're lying or telling the truth, they want to be able to look at these, different indicators that are going on, or in an interrogation room, whether it's hostage negotiator or police or whatever, or even in a boardroom, the ability to observe what's going on with other people. We can start with, there's what you can see. And that's many things. You can see skin color change. You can see breathing rates. You can see posture and body movement. You can see eyes move. You can see head tilts. You can see lip size increase or decrease, pupils dilate. I mean, all this kind of stuff. So when I'm and then you got postural stuff and big movements and small movements and gestures and tiny things. And then there's what you hear. And that's tone and timbre and timbre. I'm sorry, tone and timbre, rate, and highs and lows and volume increases and all this. And so there's just with what you can see and hear in another person, there's a lot of things. Let's say there's 24 things to pay attention to. And when someone first starts learning that can be overwhelming. So you restrict their focus to one thing. You say, just look at their nose, for example, and notice if it changes color when they're talking, or their skin. Notice when they breathe in. You can see it from their shoulders rising. Don't look at women's breasts. Just, look at the outline of their body, and you can see when someone inhales or exhales, right? So there's things that you can do. And at first it seems like, wow, I got all these things I got to do. I don't know how I'm going to manage it. But as they do it, if they just let go and watch one thing, and then gently another day add another thing, and they practice that for a while, and then they add a third thing, and they practice that for a while, pretty soon they're doing 2 or 3 things at one time. And then they're doing 4 things at one time. Because attention tends to move. It's not just locked in like a laser beam. So if you stop trying to manage and control everything, and you just become more aware and aware of being present and aware of what's going on around you, that can be pleasant, and that you increase your ability to respond without forcing your ability to respond. And that alleviates a lot of stress. So it's being able to receive and be able to give, and be completely present. I love the notion of being completely present. So anyway, that's what I say. And now you can go on and find lack of balance in what I just said.
Something you said, Rex, though, something that reminded me. I don't know if they still do it nowadays, but back in the old days, I used to watch circuses as a kid, and they'd have these plate turners. watch a circus on TV, like and you watch these plate spinners. You know, if you remember the plate spinners, they have these 4 foot, 5 foot poles that are stuck on a board, and basically you put a plate up and you spin it around until it spins on its own. And it's great for 1 or 2, maybe 1, 2, or 3. But when they get like 5 in a row going, and then it's like in the second row of those, you watch their stress level increase. And I think it's the way we deal with life. It's like, yes, and especially, yes, I know in the masculine and feminine work I do, the feminine is much more able to multitask than the masculine is. Masculine is more single focused, more direct, more getting things done. The feminine is more inclusive sort of thing, independent of gender. But the thing is, that definitely it's important to recognize what things don't need to be on your plate when you want to focus. So like with Teodora's focus in her business, using her as a model again, is the recognition is that there are certain things that ought to be, should be, are best put on the back burner, so to speak, so you can focus and be present to that, because balance also means, what are your priorities? What are you choosing to focus on? Because it isn't about putting focus on everything else. One thing I was going to say earlier, from what Scott was saying, I remember there's a template I used to use, and I've used it several times, having the wheel of life, and it's basically like a wheel with like 12 spokes, and each spoke is an area of life you focus on. And the key thing is not to have all you focus on one area, because it's like having a flat tire on one side. It's not going to be evenly rolling. It's having focus on all of those things. But you decide what that focus is. So you might have 100% focus on sleeping. It might be 6 hours a night. For somebody else, it might be 10 hours a night. So you have different variable skills. So finding balance in all the areas is up to you to decide what those mean to you. Because there's no formula for everyone. There's no formula that works for everybody. We'll have a different focus and different priorities.
You know, this raises an interesting question. You know, we talk about balance, but in some ways we're talking about homeostasis, and yet a lot of times when we talk about homeostasis, we're using it as we have a financial set point, and you know, unless we change something, we'll never get above that, and things like that. But really, it's about returning, you know, to center, and the Earth seems to know how to do that pretty much on its own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the planets seem to be able to figure out what they're doing. You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it's like the road less traveled. It's what we've done is we become so busy and so intelligent and so smart and so over sophisticated and so societally corrupted in some ways that we forget that life is really about being simple and enjoying it. And it's not about struggling to get ahead and building an empire and paying taxes and dying. You know, it really isn't. Now, if that's what somebody wants to do, you know, they're fully able to do it. You know, and God bless them. But the point is that sometimes it's saying less is more. And if you want to be, you know, again, when you're present, you're not focused on all sorts of other things. You're focused on less in some ways, but that less can be massive. You know, it can be expansive. It can be incredible. It can be, you know, beyond anything you can imagine. So I really think for most people, it's about simplifying their life. Maybe, or it could be prioritizing. It can be, you know, deciding what's really truly important, but then just simplifying it and embracing life for no reason other than because you're able to, you know, live. Don't think about living, just live.
Yeah, I mean, like we resist from stressing on things. I mean, and do things. If there's things you want to do them in an order that you feel in the mood to do. If that's what I've been doing now lately is knowing the things that need to be done, but doing them when I'm in the mood to do them, not feeling like it's such a necessary thing to do. I mean, because then you have some resistance towards it. You know, you're not leaning into the task. You're feeling like it's daunting or something.
I might get shot at for this statement by, I don't know about people here, but what do you suppose that the early humans, like, you know, the ones that got past the grunts and groans and actually started to articulate language, you know, and they came in from a rough day at, you know, hunting or gathering, you suppose they said, you know, maybe you should go see a counselor and work out all your stresses, struggles here, because you're just not the cave person I married, you know. And it's like, you know, when did we get so?
Do you have a microphone in my house?
I just say, when did we get so enamored with fixing ourselves that we have become so we're coddled, we're insulted, we're cajoled, we're praised by psychology and psychiatrists, and all this stuff about how we're not enough and how this and how that and everything is a problem and this is a problem. And I mean, we just keep infinitely splitting hairs, and it that adds to stress. I mean, I suspect that this is why I say, at least in the days of the gladiators or the pioneers, it might have been really, really tough. But I think they had some worries. I mean, how would I know? I wasn't there. But my guess is they had some worries, but they weren't sitting down in an office talking about it and trying to resolve their difficulties. They were kind of like going, all right, this is my life, and what do I do now? And so you kind of had to, in some ways, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and at the same time, go with what was known at the time. Now we know too much. It actually reminds me that I need to order more word of the day toilet paper. Well, I think you're truly a sage with that comment.
The thing is, though, gladiators didn't have water coolers to hang out with, so it's true they didn't like kibitz around the microwave.
It was called a campfire. Okay.
Oh, fine.
It got dark out. There was nothing else to do. They just had to build a fire. And
but then they either talked about what happened that day, or they talked about what was going to happen the next day, or they told stories and they just shared things. I think Rex is dead on with that. Yeah. That the paralysis by analysis, all the stuff that's going on, that we're trying to figure everything out, and very rarely is anybody really upset when they compare themselves to themselves. It comes from comparison outside themselves, or what somebody has pressed upon them. There's a whole lot of shouldn't going on, and you should do this, you should do that, you should. And the reality is, I'm loving I made 10 calls today. You should have made 15. No, 10 was fine. I'm good with it. I mean, there's so much over analysis, but that's where we've lost the efficiency. We have tools that can give us efficiency, and yet we're not using them because we're so analyzing how efficient the efficiency tools are. It's right. Gets a little crazy.
Hey, I want to acknowledge Pam, Aubrey out there, Joe Ingram. Thank you for being here, Christopher Roush, and our beautiful Flo Jam. Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Congratulations, Flo.
Yes.
Big accomplishment.
Yeah, she's doing great things. So, but yeah, this topic is a great topic to remember, that, like you just said, Scott, and what Rex said, your schedule to whom, who are you comparing? Like, nobody knows really your schedule. You do. I mean, so what if you don't get one thing on the list done or whatever? Your balance is getting done and be present in what you're doing. And so it is amazing the things that we press upon ourselves, but the most important things that we should be pressing upon, we don't. I mean, we're worried about the less busy stuff, doing the busy work, but we're really not busy in doing the work.
Well, that's a great point, because a lot of people don't know the difference between productivity and just being
right.
busy.
That's true.
Occupied. I mean, I always liken it to, you can be stuck in the mud or the snow and spinning your tires, and the faster you spin them and the more you try and get out of the car, you can rock it and all that. Doesn't necessarily get you anywhere.
Right.
But there's a lot of activity. It's just not productive, unless it makes the right kind of contact. And so your point right there, Lynn, is really also important.
And the thing is that, thank you, Rex. The important thing is all this starts in our mindset, in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could just clear out some dust bunnies and realize that we can clear that area anytime we want, and find what's of value and joy and balance, we'd have a better life just starting there. And sometimes you have to back off from some things just to get some clarity. And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's why I think society created this. Well, not society, but some evildoers.
Yeah.
They say it's to make our life more efficient and better, but it's making us stupider. It's making us dumber. It's distracting us and causing people all sorts. And it's not just this; it's the thing we're talking on too. It's a great benefit, and at the same time, it's used as it always is. It's used for porn and for bad news and for all this stuff and everything else. And instead of serving us the way it could be serving us, or instead of us taking responsibility and using it the way it could be used, which is a larger issue.
Let's just the bottom line. The bottom line is do you remember your kid's phone number? If you don't look it up,
I got to tell you, they created this to help communication. It's actually destroyed more communication than it's helped.
Yes.
Working with first responders, one of the things that used to happen was after a call, which could have been a tragic call or a traumatic call, everyone went back to the firehouse and they had what they call the table talk. They'd all be in the kitchen. They'd be cooking chili or drinking coffee, and they'd all sit around the table, and that would be the time for them to decompress and to get things off their chest. And what happens now is people get back to the firehouse and they're not sitting around here anymore. They're going off to separate spaces and they're on their phones or on their laptops. They're communicating with people outside of the fire station. They're doing their bills or they're doing whatever. All good, efficient things. Wonderful. That's great.
Or they're posting pictures of the event.
Or posted, yes. But what's not happening anymore is they don't have that decompressive table talk. And now what we're doing is we're coming in here saying, well, there's a greater amount of PTSD. And so, well, of course there is, because nobody's talking. And everybody's it's all staying inside. So this is a dangerous thing, these phones. I wanted to add something else in there that one of the things that, and I love the ideas about focus, about being present, about, listen, if this is my priority, that's my priority. That's great. I just want to remind people, and this is something from my own experience, is that I can't expect the lawn or the grass to grow if I don't water the lawn. If I'm off doing other things and I'm hyper-focused on something and I'm thinking, listen, I'm going to spend all my time on this, but when I go home, that lawn's going to be green. No, it's not. I have to find the balance I'm talking about. It's not about a balance of time or even a balance of energy. It's about, if I want things, I have to take care of things. If I don't want them, that's fine. If it's not my priority, that's fine. But I can't expect that I can ignore my family and go do what I need to do and then come home and everything's going to be okay, because it will not. I can't expect the lawn to grow if I don't take some time to water it. And I can't expect myself. It's like giving up sleep. I could do that for so long, but then sooner or later, everything falls apart. I've got to take care of some of the basic needs that I have. And that's one of the things that I work with people and myself. That's something I had to learn myself. I put more focus into certain things, and people have to understand that in my life. This is where I have to focus my life. Some people can't live my lifestyle. They're like, why do you spend so much time? I'm on the phone with people at midnight who are drunk, and not many people are very understanding about that. They're like, well, don't answer the phone. I have to answer the phone. That's what I do. And this is what happens. But if I have somebody in my life and there's certain things I could do to make that work, and I could shift a little bit of balance in that direction. If I want that, that's what I have to do. I can't expect to ignore it and still have it be good. Does that make sense? If you want your grass to grow, you got to stop and water it once in a while. That's all it is. But you're right. I mean, I've also got to be able to be focused on what I'm doing at that moment, to be present in that moment. Because that's really all you got. Rex always says it. All you've got is this second, this moment. That's all you got. There is no 5 minutes ago or 5 minutes from now. All you got is right now. And if I'm not in this right now, then I'm nowhere. So I've got to be in it.
What you said has to do with your mind, because bottom line is if you got 10 things to do, you can delegate and say, well, I'll hire somebody to do the lawn, hire somebody to do this. I mean, you can find balance by asking for help, doing different things. I mean, they don't have to be an excuse.
You got to be willing to put in the time and the work. I know a lot of people who come to me and they're like, Rex and I were talking before the show started. There's people come say, oh, I want to do what you do. I want to be a trainer. And I'm like, you do realize that you've got to go out and find people to take the classes. You got to find the location. You got to get them to pay. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do that. And they go, oh, no. I just want to train. And I'm like, well, no, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. It's like people who go take these courses. That's why, why most people are rich now? Is because they convince people, if you give me money, I'll teach you how to be rich. And they don't teach them shit. It's because everybody wants the shortcut and everything else. You can't have the shortcuts. If you want it, work for it. But if you want everything, you've got to put time into everything. That's all I'm saying.
In the 70s, there's a guy named Joe Carbo. Anybody remember him?
Yep.
Sounds familiar.
The Lazy Man's Way to Riches.
Oh, yeah.
They ran commercial after commercial in Los Angeles, and essentially you get the book and it says, write a book that says, do exactly what I'm doing right now.
Seriously?
So you're rich if they do a commercial and sell a book that tells them that they can do the same thing that you're doing. I mean, it's recursive in nature, but it is, but you're very right. You're very true. But going back to everything, because you said a lot of important things there, is that you said earlier, some of the day I sit and some of the day I stand at my desk. And just knowing that, I mean, if you're going to sit on your ass all day, you're going to have some problems. So you got to get up and move. If all day you sit and eat, you're going to have some problems. So you sometimes have to let it digest. If you never eat, you're going to have problems. So it is just knowing at the moment when you need balance. And I'm going to say something shocking, I'm sure.
Wait a minute.
It's going to go way over Joel Ingram's head.
Okay, I'm prepared. I'm buckled in.
It's going to be a jet plane joke. No, it is really, it's intuitive. It's an intuitive thing. You have to be in touch with yourself and what you are when you're a natural human on the planet, and not one that is distracted by all of the shiny objects and the phones and the business and the stress of the family and societal living and everything else. We've lost touch with, kind of like the native way of living, where you rested when you were tired, you ate when you were hungry, you fought when you had to, and you played when you could. So we need to find that from the heart, from the mind, from infinite intelligence, from our subconscious, or whatever you want to say, that intuitive sense of, I need something different at this moment, or I need this right now, and then be that in that moment. Instead of trying to figure it out, the reason why we're trying to figure it out, or why we write books, or we do this, because people have lost touch with being a natural human being. And so, there's all the therapies and all the things and everything else to try and get people to go, look, just focus on something. And some of the therapies and some of the practices are silly and stupid and wrong and downright lies, and others are really valid and important. And now the public has to figure out which ones are really stupid and lies and which ones are really valid and important, because the internet has now confused everything. So it is getting through all of this fabric of craziness to just become simple and live life as we were intended to live. And I gotta say, I mean, nobody's gonna, I mean, we're in where we are now. So people say, well, Rex, that's silly. But we weren't intended to pay taxes. We weren't intended to have boundaries on our countries. We weren't intended to wear clothing the way we wear clothing. We weren't intended to drive, and do all these silly things. And it's all good that we can do some of it, but some of it, we forget that it just ain't natural. It's artificial, it's imposed, and that's okay. Now we need to figure out what to do with it, but we haven't evolved far enough to figure out how to transcend the limitations that we think are there. Because you can live free with boundaries, you can live free with, the clothing or whatever, but people have to come to that conclusion on their own.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just because we can, we think we should. And maybe we shouldn't have done some of the things we've done. Maybe we didn't need all that stuff. But hey, it's where we are, right? It's where we are.
And we got to stop looking at what we don't like, and we need to look at what we do like. And I mean, and go with that. You can't no sense of bitching about the things that didn't go right or not going right, unless that's where you want to go.
That's what divorce lawyers are for.
What comes to me, with what you were saying there, is look at all the AI and all the stuff that's going on now. Now AI can do your homework for you. AI can do this. AI can do that. Why do we need people? Why don't we just have computers working with computers? And so at some point, just because we can do these things doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You can have a self-driving 18-wheeler. Let me think. I really don't want that coming at me. With nobody I can, get mad at or yell at or jump up and down or something. It's like, some of this stuff is, it's taking the common sense out of so much different stuff. How do you have economies? How do you do it? If people aren't working or people don't have jobs to do and all the different things, some of it's pretty crazy, and and then it's, hey, take my course because look at this brilliant material that AI generated for me.
Yeah.
It's like, boy, I want to learn from your computer. Woo.
Well, Scott, let me ask you this, Scott. I mean, because I think that's a great point. But what if we get to the point where we could just have the computers do all the work and we get to play all the rest of the time? We can all move to islands and great places while the economy is run by computers, and we just benefit from it.
That's the key thing.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
We'll have a
but
Wally
I don't think
World
that's the way they're headed. Right?
I don't think so.
I don't think the guys who own the AI and own the computers are using that model.
Right.
Hey, let's be benevolent to everybody so they can just screw off the rest.
Well, I mean, it's humans are irrelevant. I mean, let's just go. Let's find our paradise, and we can go party, and they can run the world.
Well, the thing is, that was the whole premise of Star Trek. Yeah. There was no currency in Star Trek. It was like the fact they had realized, and the thing is, as we create more technology like 3D printers, there's more things we can do that would require just raw materials that don't require major investments. Ultimately, once they're running, we get to a point where maybe we can do that. Possibly, no guarantees, but of course, it's presuming we're still around when it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Teodora, how you doing?
How you doing?
I'm thinking back to when God created life and how he created a man and a woman to balance each other, and how then we got distraction, and how to this day we have so much distraction to maybe take us off balance. So those are my thoughts, and I love what Rex said, and I loved the conversation there was about the phones and how much more damage do they do than good. And I think it's important to recognize also the distractions that we have these days when we talk about balance, because we have so much distraction. We just like we recognize that there's so many coaches. There's so many, everybody's trying to teach you something. Everybody's trying to sell you something. Everybody's trying to do something. However, we have to stay, straight, and we have to focus, right? Balance, focus to what we want and how we want to be and what we want out of this life, so that those distractions would be just noise. Everybody has something going on, and we might hear of a relationship that is not, or it's so easy to scroll left and right and say yes and say no and all of that stuff. When we talk about, I was shopping at Ulta today and they insisted that I need to open a credit card today because it's such a good deal. Absolutely. Like, you can't miss this deal. And I said, I don't need it. I don't want it, but it's a good deal. You have to have it. It's a good deal. A coach you have to have a coach. You have to. Distractions are interesting, aren't they? They're like,
you're doing real good. You don't need our help there.
She was going strong until she got distracted there.
Thank you, Edward Bernays.
Oh my gosh!
Life we find ourselves living. I want to. Can I just? Oh, go ahead.
No, up to you.
No, I was just going to say. You were talking about God.
I'm getting nauseous.
I want to be able to do that thing where they, there's all this really freaky weird. I just want to be able to do that in real life. Go into a party and go, oh, hey, everybody, and have them all go, oh my God.
Sorry.
How you kind of like live as the mask, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Back in the day, you were talking about the Bible, or about God creating humans for balance, and then we got distracted. I talk about this a lot because whether you believe it or not, I mean, it's a great allegory, or it's truth, whatever it is. You had, and we might have even talked about it here. You had the choice between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and they chose the knowledge tree. And look at where we are today. We're in this pursuit of information, we're in pursuit of knowledge. We think that knowledge will transform us instead of choosing life. And we have lost touch of that. They could have chose life, but they didn't. And every day we are faced with that very same decision. Every moment we're faced with that very decision. That's why what Scott said about the present, every moment it's either information or this or that or another thing, or am I alive and living well? And, and even asking those questions gets kind of weird after a while, because it's about living without having all of the dialogue in your head going, yes, this is good. No, this is bad. Oh, am I fulfilling my prime directive or not? It's just having a life that you enjoy and that feels purposeful. And in this day and age, that means different things than, say, back in the Garden of Eden, but it doesn't have to be qualitatively different. Okay, spin me out.
No. The importance of balance in life is we forget, we only have one life here. And, it's sad. We don't take that moment when we think of somebody to give them a call. And then we realize it's already too late. We can't make that call. And I really wish that people would balance and take that moment in time to text that person, send them a little video or something, because most of the time your intuition knows that may be the last time you have. So again, it's the little things in life that we take for granted that we should not forget to stop and smell the roses. And on Valentine's Day, it's important.
And I think it's just as important for us to be maybe take a moment and just to be in awe of. We're talking about the creation of man, and let's just talk about Mother Earth on its own. I mean, every ecosystem, there's so many different creatures and so many different. Every one of those creatures has a different priority and a different idea in their head about what they're supposed to do, but it balances. It's all done in a certain balance. The one creature that's been introduced into the society that throws it out of balance is man. We're the ones who don't, we don't conform to anything. If we want to, if I want to plow down, this tree and get rid of the wooded owls, they're gone. And if I want to get rid of this, they're gone. And hey, let me take all the Burmese pythons and bring them into Florida. And now, why is the ecosystem screwed up? It's because you brought those. They didn't belong there. If they were supposed to be there, they would have been there. So sometimes balance is simply just let things go and be the way they are. Sometimes balance is more about just let it go. Stop trying to control everything. Stop trying to manipulate everything. I mean, look at the history of man. How many societies or cultures or nations have existed for a period of time that haven't gone through war and just total imbalance? I mean, because we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it. We got rich people paying less money than poor people pay. It's like, oh, you can't afford this? Guess what? You're going to pay more than somebody who can afford it. That doesn't even make sense. I mean, there's so many things we do that are just so asinine and so ass backwards. You want to look for blame for imbalance and for hardships, just look in the mirror, because that's where it belongs. Let things be. Mother Nature knew what she was doing when everything was created, and it's all right. Everything's good.
Why do you suppose humans want to try and control the weather?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because it serves them. I mean,
exactly.
You're so right on. That's spot on.
You want to do a quick roundup there, Scott?
Yeah, let's all do a once around and just something you've thought of. You guys have taught me a lot today. I want to thank you before we even do anything. You guys, just the stuff you brought it today just got me thinking in all different directions, and I love that. And so now I probably won't sleep tonight. I'll have Rex and Scott and Barry and Teodora in my head all night. Thank you very much for the visuals. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
We're taking up occupancy.
Go ahead, beautiful Teodora.
I think in order to be balanced, we have to have Lynn and Scott's Friends show as we all see it in person, so that we can not only be live and online, but also meet in person. I think it's time so that we balance this group and share the love with each other and hug and spend time together so that we can balance the online world with the in-person world and live happily ever after.
She's thinking the beginning of June. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay. All right.
So, Denver is a destination.
What's Denver?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Barry, I love you, Teodora.
Yeah, interesting balance. That was somebody else's priority, not everyone's priority, but I love that. One thing came up during the thoughts. A couple of quick things. One is interesting. We have these things called phones, but we don't use them for phone calls. We use them for everything else all the time. So just a thought about that.
Yep.
But I want to say one thing is that one of the challenges we find in balance is oftentimes, as we said earlier, we're very distracted. We get pulled different ways and different things going on. What we can do as regular people is it sounds simple to do, especially if one of my things when meditating, I sometimes find myself like wanting to do 17 other things. Well, I regularly feel like I want to do 17 other things. So my lesson is always to have a notepad and pen by me, because I know if I write it down, I can let it go. So one of the things for balance is to do the same thing in other parts of life. Like if you're working in a business all the time, but meanwhile your mind's going, I need to do this, and need to do this, need to do this, because our mind does that. Give it an outlet by writing it down. So one of the best things for balance I've learned is to like not to block the distractions, but to utilize them in an effective way. So write stuff down. It's simple, but it works.
I love that.
Excellent.
Oh,
that's great.
That. Very.
That's great. I'm going to write that down.
Love you. He's taking notes.
I always take notes when we talk, guys. Always.
Hipster.
Okay. Well, what Barry said is very true. I mean, there are times where, the business world flies at you and you finish the day and say, oh, I'm going to get some sleep. And about an hour later, the business world is still circulating. And so it is routinely get up, write it all down, and then go back to sleep, because it'll be there in the morning. And that's a great way to do it. I think a big part of this is we all have the opportunity to be as balanced and present as we want to be. I know that for a long time in my career, I thought you just had to go 400 miles an hour in one direction and everything else would just kind of get sucked along. And what I found out is it sucked, but not along. So the point is, it doesn't all just come, in the vortex with you. You've got to put some effort into it, and you've got to make some conscious decisions. And that is what some of us more mature, that's code word for older, some of us more mature folks finally learned over time is, some of it, maybe all of it is worth it. It's just not all as good as you dreamed it was going to be. And so you just kind of, learn and modify, experience, but do the things, what just popped in is, why do people have a bucket list? Why haven't they just done it before they need the bucket? It's just kind of, why not live it the entire time?
They put it on a list.
Well, I know so they're using Barry's technique, but
never going back to reread it. You got to reread your notes.
Well, no, but it's just interesting that I think, as opposed to living, people say, do you have any regrets? Do you have any of this? Well, why would you? Because you've done what you've done. I think people typically work to do the very best they possibly can all the time. I don't think anybody goes, I'm just going to really suck at this today. I don't think that's the way it works.
You're just natural at it.
Yeah. So, just play full out, enjoy it,
Absolutely.
Go like hell.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Hipster.
That's great. I'm going to make a political comment based on that, because I completely agree. And And when people say, well, there are lazy people out there and they just want entitlements, I go, that's bullshit. Nobody just want. I mean, you can always say, well, there may be someone who wants to game the system, but for the most part, everybody I've ever met in my life wants to be productive and feel good, and they're responsible for living. They're not out there looking for. I mean, not that there aren't free things, but they're not looking for the handout that everybody accuses them of looking for. So everybody wants to. I think just like we're kind of self-initiating and self-mobile and self all this. I think that speaks of all the species. One thing I would say is, going back to Teodora's thing, and then I'll stop with another thought. But if you want to be an Olympic athlete, you're going to be a little bit out of balance in terms of how much time you spend training and being coached and putting energy into that. And it's going to take years for you to get there so you can perform for 5 seconds or whatever it is. And then, either medal or not, and then come back another 4 years if you're lucky. It's a time, energy investment, that's phenomenal. If you want to start a business, you may be out of balance. If any pursuit may be out of balance. But the people who tend to be the most successful of the athletes or of business people or anyone are the ones who do learn how to make it a head thing and a heart thing and a behavior thing, and find some kind of balance between those while pursuing something very passionately and intensely. It's not sacrificing one for the other. It's figuring out how to make it work. And when they get that alignment, there are some athletes who are total asses, and then there's some are assholes, and then there are those who are just totally, really, wonderful because they figured it out. So, lastly, I would say this, just to ponder. They say there's something like 17 trillion cells in our body, and they work together in harmony and simultaneously and sequentially. I mean, it's a synergistic system. So, if there's 17 trillion cells in me, and there's 6 people here, and there's 17 trillion of the 6 of us here. Think about the 8 billion people on the planet, and think of all the ants and the snails and the lions and the tigers and the bears and the tree. I mean, how many cells are we actually? And we're trying to control something. So maybe going with the flow and learning how to be present and learning, just to love and live and be happy. And figure that out is really, truly the most important for all of us to embrace.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
We're
Very
blessed.
well said.
We're blessed again with a crew that just knows the things that need to be said.
Absolutely. Just again, the last thought on these phones, used to be I used to look at my watch to tell what time it was, and then they put the clocks on the phones, and now people look at their phones to see what time it is. And then they decided to put the phones in the watch, so now you could talk on your watch while you check the time on your phone. We don't know what the hell we're doing, all right? Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. It's a mess.
I remember just a real quick thing on the watches. I sat with somebody in a social setting. It was a business compadre, but their watch, they had so many messages coming to their watch that we couldn't carry on a conversation.
Wow.
It was flip up, look at the watch. Do I need to take this? Oh my God, do I need to react? Can I do? And I just finally looked and I said, notice no watches. And my phone is off. We're sitting here having, one drink. That's all we were going to had time for. And then we didn't even have time for that while we were there. So,
and to think that may be the last memory you have of spending with somebody. So then you have to go back to your memory bank of when's the last time back in old days when you actually talked.
Hey, maybe we have a business opportunity here. In the Old West, they used to take their horses and put a stringer, the reins around a post to keep their horses on the outside. You couldn't bring your pets in. Why don't we do like safety deposit boxes outside of all buildings that say phones stay out here? And you get a lock code
station,
just like you do at the bus station or something, and you put your key in and you get it back when you get your phone back when you come out of the dinner.
And you'd have to fight people from crawling in the boxes.
That's right.
Imagine walking by and hearing all the ringing and the buzzing and the texting and the phones going off inside this thing.
The thing
That's
is,
right.
Phones and watches do have mute switches or buttons or sits. Like this thing I do is like, I have one of the smartwatches. But if I'm going to do a meeting or a dinner thing, whose was that?
Who was that?
It was not me, but I think it was
for me. The thing is, but the thing is on my
Perfect
watch, what's like about it is I can just swipe it once, hit mute, and it's done. It's so easy. But most people don't bother with that. You know, they want to be connected. They want to stay informed. They think they got to stay ready for every message.
How present are you in the moment if you still have to be connected to the whole world all at once?
Right.
Yeah.
Come on. Disconnect every once in a while, people. It used to be the greatest joy to leave your house and say, I'll be home in a few hours, and nobody could reach you. I used to love that.
All right, you guys. And it's another wrap.
Yeah.
Great topic.
Thank
Love
you.
you guys. Thank you for being here.
Happy Valentine's Day to all of you guys.
Yep.
You know,
love you guys.
Love to every one of you.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Keeping me safe and sound. And when